What post-secondary education have you received?
So I went to the University of Calgary and studied engineering and took a bachelor's and a master's.
I'm a university dropout. I ended up going to school for half a semester and I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I ended up taking some time off and here we are 30 plus years later.
I grew up in Quebec. So I went through the CEGEP program. You graduate in grade 11, then you do 2 years of CEGEP, which I graduated from there with a general science degree. And while I was
So I have a cross-disciplinary degree from the University of Western Ontario. And then at 36, I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I did the executive MBA program at U of C and specialized on technology commercialization.
What has your career path been since you graduated?
So we were doing IT security, and then, I don't know, within maybe 5 years of starting the company, we became a software vendor. And so we made software for what's called identity and access management. It's a narrow segment of the IT security business. I was kind of one of the folks running that company for 28 years. And towards the tail end of that, a much bigger company came along and bought it.
Sales was something I just fell in love with. I was really good at it. And I was able to make a very good living and eventually was able to buy into a business that we grew and scaled and exited and been lucky enough to be part of the ecosystem here that allowed me to do that and help 3 other companies grow, scale, and exit, and also now come back and be an angel investor. And
I was early 20s. I'd graduated. I had my multi-commercial pilot's license. And not long after that, if some of you on the call may remember, some might be a little bit young, but this thing called 9/11 happened. And all of a sudden the aviation industry was no longer viable. So I found myself no longer pursuing my career of choice and pivoted actually into the health and fitness industry. And I ended up moving down to Los Angeles and I co-ran the nutrition center at Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. And I ended up working for some organizations there that basically flew me all around North America, training gym owners at the time in the early 2000s, how to operate their gym successfully, how to run weight loss and personal training programs, which then for me scaled into building my own fitness related brand here in Calgary.
When I finished Western, I was working at a bar, and the guy I used to work with got me a job because he was a recruiter as an inside salesperson. I lasted 60 days in that job, got promoted to outside sales, and then was just parachuted all over the country to go solve all these territories. And then had this crazy idea for a sales tool, got involved in a competition for billion-dollar business ideas that I won, got $1 million prize from a very famous venture capitalist down in California. Went down, became a dad, came back, ended up teaching entrepreneurship at the University of Calgary, but got myself in trouble because students became entrepreneurs. So they kicked me out and replaced me with a PhD. And I am now the full-time entrepreneur resident at Bow Valley College. And I focus on helping students and youth becoming first-time entrepreneurs.
What did you like most about your career, all the jobs that you've had, all the positions that you've had?
The best thing I would say is that we hired really smart people and we had an awesome team, and just coming into work every day to work with really smart and, problem solvers who are kind of energetic and getting things done.
I just love working with all the entrepreneurs and startups in our ecosystem. There's so many great people here. There's so many great companies. Just meeting the people, making sure that I'm there to share my knowledge and my experiences with the people that are, coming after me.
The ability and the opportunity to get to know businesses, to get to understand what makes them tick, what drives value. Sometimes even the opportunity to help them identify things that they might take for granted inside their business that their customers actually do love or that differentiate them in a new market. The ability to live, I would say, inside of a living, breathing case study all the time is an absolute gift.
People show up at my doorsteps. I have this super cool space, a platform. People show up all the time and they're like, hey, I'm new in town. So I had a lady from Ukraine came to town, was telling me what she did around software quality work. And she sent me a connection request on LinkedIn. And that night I actually spoke to a CEO who was looking for a software quality person. I put the two of them together. 2 weeks later, she got hired. But for me, it's around helping people.
What advice can you offer to a teenager that's aspiring to start a business soon?
Reaching out there and talking to people that have been there before, talking to people that have done it is extremely important. Now, you might have a great idea, and then someone like Craig or myself or Idan might know somebody that has a similar idea that can introduce you to, and 2 heads are better than one. So get out there, start meeting people, start networking, start talking about your idea to people, and seeing if it's something that you want to go for.
Stay in school and, get an education, and don't jump into business instead of doing that. Do that first. That's my personal opinion. That doesn't mean that entrepreneurship and building a business is not rewarding. It is, but it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. So if you're going to pursue that, pursue something small, right? Evenings, weekends, summer holidays, that kind of thing.
Are there any specific industries and niches where you see like a great potential for young entrepreneurs to make a significant impact today?
So to really point it and say, well, stay in STEM or focus on AI or look at what's happening in life sciences, look what's happening in ag. I think that's almost too specific to point out. I think, where do you have curiosities and interest, and where do some of your potentially your talents lend, or do you have opportunity to get connected into that space?
What skills and life experiences should someone pursue if they don't plan on attending university?
I've always been very personable, and if we ever meet in person, I mean, I'll talk to everybody. I always have time to listen to people. I always have time to talk to people, but it's something that I take. If somebody reaches out to me or takes the time to say that they want to talk to me, I always make myself available. So I think that's that soft skill of just being there for somebody, being able to listen, and wanting to be genuine and help people is something that you really need.
Do you have any advice for like reaching out to people?
They're called super connectors. I don't know how Jade sounds like he's a super connector. So go find those super connectors in any network, whether it's a geography or an industry. Go find a way to connect with those folks, and then just tell them, hey, I'd love to pick your brain for 20 minutes. When would be a good time to have a phone call? As long as you tell them you're a student, almost anybody's willing to help.
As a marketing professional, what are key skills and qualities you believe are essential for young entrepreneurs looking to build a brand or promote their business?
If you're going to put something out there, be clear of it, what it is to yourself first. Being clear what you stand for, what you're about, what value you intend to add. It doesn't mean you can't pivot, and doesn't mean, well, you will pivot and you will learn and you will adapt. But when you start putting things out there and you think about your audience, making your audience the hero, giving them everything they need to be part of your story or to even be interested in it, make it, I'm not going to say make it easy, but make it clear. Know what you stand for, know what's important to you, and put it out there. And
how do you deal with losses? Right. So for example, in sales, with customers, with employees, etc.
Reality for me, I had to identify early on in my career that I didn't over-identify with the loss itself. I took it for the learning that it was. I took it for the experience that it was, and stopped grading it as good, bad, or indifferent. But, separate it and put it over there on the desk and move it away from you and say, okay, what can I learn from this situation? How would I have wanted it to end differently? Could I have impacted it? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
I think the other thing you could try to do is build resilience. That the smaller your business is, the harder that is, because the greater the granularity, right? Like if you have 2 employees and one of them quits, well, half your workforce just went away. If you have 200 employees, one of them quits, that's 0.5% of your workforce, right? It's a different thing. But basically, you want to try to build resiliency. So if you're talking about losing customers, then you want to have as many customers as possible, so that losing one isn't a material problem. If it's losing staff, then you want to have as many staff as your business will support, so that losing one isn't a material problem.
I've always liked turning my nose into a why, and figuring out why wouldn't you buy from me, or why don't you need this product right now, or what are you looking for, right? And again, that goes back to listening to a lot of your clients, especially as an early stage entrepreneur. Like I mentioned this before, you might have a great idea, but maybe nobody wants it. And you got to figure out why nobody wants it.
What I teach and what I travel the world teaching is ignore the business you lose. You don't care. What you care about is understanding better the business that you win. So when you win the business, you had a lot of the right recipes. Focus on what made you win. It's like any tennis player. They're not going to focus on why did I lose. They're going to go, when I'm winning, what am I doing right? So
some key lessons that you've learned from your entrepreneurial journey, and that you believe that every aspiring young entrepreneur should be aware of.
The one thing that I've learned is to be myself. I think I've become successful because who I am. And it's something that I'm passionate about. I'm very, I'm very not opinionated, but I tell it like it is, which is the name of my show. If I don't beat around the bush, and I listen to people, and I just enjoy being out there talking to people and sharing my knowledge. And that is something that I think should be the cornerstone of you as a person. And
whatever it is that you want to build or deliver, you have to center it on your customer, which means you need to know who your customers are. You need to know what problems they really have, and you need to have something that you can really fix for your customers, right? And something that bothers them enough with a solution that's compelling enough that they will spend time and money on it.
Be very careful on the journey, especially early on, because there's expectations and there's a story you tell yourself about what success might be or what failure might be. Being disciplined enough to understand what that is and how you define it in almost every single situation, from every meeting you have to every interaction, like, oh, what was I hoping to accomplish? What was my intent? What was my outcome? What does a win? What's a loss? Like back to the losses concept. When you treat it more as a transactional element to let you understand, okay, that moved me in the direction I wanted to go. So therefore it's a win. Taking the time to define that and being intentional with successes and how you define them and failures and how you define them can really save you a lot of sleepless nights thinking that things aren't doing the right or that things are taking too long and all the things that I think sometimes get mistaken for failure because they weren't clearly defined going in.
Build something people want. So there's a 3-step process. The first process is what you have desirable? Are you talking to people who will actually be your customers, asking them about the problem they've had in the past? And have they spent any money solving this problem? So the first thing is, do people want it? The second thing is it viable? Can you make enough money at it to run the business and maybe even attract investors? Only when you know people want it, you can actually make enough money to even then actually go away and build it. As soon as you do anything about the future, people say one thing, do something completely different. So in your validation or desirability process, you can only ask questions about the past. Have they ever had this problem? How did they solve it? How much money did they spend? How happy are they with what they have?
And whether you're going to be an entrepreneur or whether you're going to be a CEO one day, or whether you're going to be a CFO or accountant or anything in life for that matter, it's just people want to do business with people they like. And that's something that's never going to change.